G'day, I'm Joel Rasmussen from Fight News Australia, and today I'm again talking to the juggernaut, Jacinta Austin. Jacinta, thank you so much for joining me again. I greatly appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me on again. Always fun.
First off, a huge congratulations on a
Thank you.
fantastic performance over in Germany. Round one submission. What would you rate your performance? On a scale of 1 to 10, we'll
Um,
say.
I'm happy with the result, but I'm still gonna give the performance like a seven. Because there's a little bit of a not a rough start, but not the start that I would give myself a 10 for. So I'm still gonna give myself a seven.
What was it like to fight overseas in Germany?
It was awesome. I didn't realize till I got there how big the promotion was over there. I'd done my research over here, but it's not till you're there, amongst everything, that you realize really how big it is in Europe. So that was a nice, fun surprise, a pleasant surprise. Yeah, the whole thing was really cool. The fans are awesome. Like we ran into like so many people along the way. A couple of them on the plane, even from Qatar to Germany, pulled out the poster and were like, "Is this you?" Because they were traveling to Oberhausen for the fight night. So yeah, it was really cool.
When you're out there, you're making the walk, you know, and it's not what you expected. As you said, it was a bit bigger. It's a bit bigger
Mm.
over there. Does that play on the mind at all, or can you kind of shut out the crowd when you're in
Nah, I
the cage?
thrive in it. As soon as we got to the venue, and you're allowed to do your little walk around before the show starts, that's when I realized how big the venue was. And nah, I thrived in it. I was like, this is perfect for me. This is what I feel like I'm supposed to do. So it just made me feel more inspired.
Was there like a lot of Aussies over there, or is it obviously it's going to be a big European base? Did it at all feel a bit like fish out of water, or did you feel you were kind of like embraced by everyone?
I didn't come across many Aussies while I was waiting to walk out, like they hold you in the back and kind of count you down kind of thing. There were some Aussies like in the crowd near the door cheering and they were chanting Aussie Aussie. I'm not sure who they were, but there were some Aussies there. But yeah, we didn't come across many, but there were a few in the crowd.
Does that, when you're about to make your walk and there's those people, as you said, you don't know who they are, but
Mm.
chanting, Aussie, 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 how does that make you feel right when you're about to make your walk?
Really supported, excited. Yeah, excited that I have like I know people back home, like people close to me are watching it, even though it's like 3 a.m. or something. But it just feels like cool to have Aussies there in person watching it as well.
So the last time we spoke about, you mentioned how getting a finish in, last time we spoke, the fight before we spoke,
Hmm.
uh, kind of changed the mentality in the game a little bit. You felt that other level of confidence. I can go out there and not only can I put my opponent away, I can put my opponent away with jujitsu, which coming from a kickboxing background is like a huge development. Now that you've got your second finish and it again coming via your jujitsu, how does that affect your confidence as a fighter?
Um, it it makes me feel a lot more confident. The strategy with this fight, and it will be with a lot of fights, is that if you can hurt them enough on the feet, to force them into wanting to grapple with you or force a bad shot, um, ideally my jiu-jitsu will be there waiting for them to capitalize on that. So I worked a lot while I'm working on my jiu-jitsu. I worked a lot on my striking for this fight as well, so that I can actually start really hurting people on the feet. And then when they want to start taking it to the ground, then I've got that waiting there, ready to capitalize.
I've been seeing through the Instagram posts before this fight and just a constant. You're keeping up with those jiu-jitsu tournaments. You're grappling all over Sydney.
Mm,
I think you maybe traveled to Queensland for one, but I'm not fully sure about that.
mm,
Uh, how is the jiu-jitsu game going? Last time you said you kind of
mm,
fell in love with it more than you love your striking. You're still in love with the
mm.
jiu-jitsu game?
Yeah, yeah, I love it a lot. I was back in the gi last night, just because I don't really train in it in fight camp, so I got back in it last night. Um, I think the jiu-jitsu, I love jiu-jitsu, but the jiu-jitsu comps are a really good opportunity for me to practice finishing and finishing within a certain amount of time as well. So I go into like the competition with not just the goals of winning, but winning within a certain time frame. And it's good. You can practice all your different, you can practice being on bottom without someone punching you in the face at the same time. Yeah, you can practice like sometimes in training it's easy to get on top of someone and just try and like ground and pound them out or something like that. But the jiu-jitsu comps are a really good opportunity for me to work on making sure that I finish within a certain amount of time. You got I think that they're 6 minutes. So you've got 6 minutes to put someone away. So that's why I like doing them.
How was it to be back in the gi? I know, as you mentioned, not a lot of gi training when you're in camp, because obviously when you're in the fight, not in a gi. Do you like the gi? Is it weird to be back in the gi?
I don't like it as much as no gi, but I do like that it feels like an entirely different sport. Like I absolutely suck in the gi. Terrible. I don't make good use of grips. I'm bad at being I make poor defensive choices in the gi, but it's just something different. It's something fun, and I love all martial arts. So, getting back in it and almost learning feels like it feels like somewhat of a new sport to me. Just that learning, yeah, I enjoy it.
So we spoke last time before you fought in UAE. Now after fighting in Germany, before fighting in Germany again, and of course you made your first MMA fight was in New Zealand. Is there a place on the map that's like the dream country to fight in? If you could fight anywhere, where would you pick?
Japan was up there with the top dream countries to fight in, and I got to do that, so that was cool. But obviously, for obvious reasons, I want to fight in America, and I really want to fight in Australia. I haven't fought here in a long time, and I haven't fought pro MMA in quite a while. So I'd love to fight here.
Talking about that, I wanted to ask about when I think people look at mixed martial arts, especially when you're not in the world promotions, the UFC or one, you can look at kind of a progression of fighting amateur at your state, pro in your state, interstate pro, and then you go to international. Obviously, you mentioned there you've missing fighting in Australia. Now that you're fighting on the international circuit, do you keep an eye on like the local scene and what's going on, or is all your attention now on the overseas scene?
I always keep up to date with the local scene. I still watch the Eternal events, and I still go to quite a few events around here just because I often have teammates or people I know on. So I still go. I keep an eye on it. Honestly, in female strawweight division, there's never much movement. Just because of the lack of contenders. Yeah, I always watch, but yeah, mostly I got my sights set on. I've already got my next opponent, so I'm watching a lot of that. Yeah, I'm mostly for my own fighting. And looking at the international scene.
Before I absolutely want to talk about your next opponent and your next fight, but I do want to go back to before this current fight that you've just had. Obviously, coming off your first loss in professional MMA, a really close split decision. Obviously, you go out there and you want to win. That's the point. You go out there, you train to win. I'm of the personal opinion of when a fight is a close split decision, neither fighter's stock goes down. When a fight could go either way, I don't think it negatively affects either fighter. What was taking your first professional loss in MMA like for the mentality?
The initial feeling in the cage when they announced the decision was that it was very dramatic. Was that I was wrong about everything. I'm not going to make the UFC. I'm not going to make a career out of it. It's kind of just like, oh, it's all over now. So that was my initial feeling, and that lasted the entire night. You just kind of sit there staring at the ceiling thinking about that. But then over the next few weeks, when I watched it back and spoke to my coaches, I realized, like you said, it wasn't really a step backwards. It was kind of a step to the side. It wasn't up or down. It was just sideways. And And then, yeah, I realized like the girl I fought was, she's world class as well. She's on Dana White's Contender Series now. And yeah, I just realized there's a couple things that I needed to work on. But it wasn't a step backwards. I made a couple little mistakes. The way I operated that fight camp could have been a lot better as well. And I believe like I fixed and addressed all those issues for the next fight. So nobody wants to lose, but in hindsight is always a blessing. I wouldn't say I needed to lose, but I needed to stop and adjust a few things. I needed to slow down and realize perhaps I wasn't quite ready for all the things I said I wanted right now. So yeah, I think in the long term, and then getting signed with Oktagon after that, in the long term, the loss is going to be a blessing for me.
What were those adjustments that you made? Like, what was your camp for the fight you've just had like, now that you could make those adjustments?
My camp this time was just more fun. Like I loved martial arts again. I loved training again. I took some of the pressure off myself with the fight that I had lost in Abu Dhabi, but so much pressure on myself to get the win that it was kind of burying me in training. It was overwhelming me so much to the point where I wasn't training very well. And I wasn't very present in the sessions because I just felt like I was overcome with pressure and overtraining, so constantly broken down, worn down, and went into the fight feeling somewhat already broken down. So yeah, the way I adjusted this camp, not overloading myself and resting when I need to, having more fun, just enjoying the training rather than just thinking about the outcome all the time.
To then come back. And I know at the top of the interview, you rated yourself a 7 out of 10. And I think every fighter, A, will be their own biggest critic. And
Yeah.
B, I think being able to be like, I did good, but I did this and I need to improve in this is what makes a great fighter. I really believe that. But still, to come back and get that first round submission, after going through all those changes, what kind of statement do you feel that makes?
I just think it makes a statement that it just shows that I've gone away and I've learned from whatever mistakes I made before or whatever was holding me down a little bit before. When I got back from the fight, someone actually said to me, because I was so down on myself about what was next for me because of that loss. Someone had said to me that people aren't really going to pay attention to your loss, but they're going to pay attention to what you do after that loss. And that really stuck out to me. So I wanted to really go away, show that I'd worked on the things that I needed to, and come back completely different fighter.
You mentioned before signing that, you signed that deal with Oktagon, it gives you a little bit of, you're like, no, it's not over. As you said, a sidestep. I was wondering, could you tell me about the deal with Oktagon? Is it like a certain amount of fights? What is your deal with Oktagon at the moment?
It's a 3-fight contract, and ideally all those fights will be done this year. So just had the first one, the next one will be in September, and hopefully the last one will be in December.
You're already booked for your second fight. After your win, they brought in your opponent into the cage, and you guys did a face-off for the vacant strawweight title. Did you know about this before the fight? Did you know if I win this, they're gonna bring in my opponent to face off with?
I had a very strong feeling. I knew, like, obviously the winner was going to fight her, and while we were there, they had already done all our photo shoots and video shoots with the belt. They did that for me and Sophia, my opponent. So whoever won, they've already got the media. Obviously, I knew she was going to be there because she's from there. But yeah, I had a strong feeling that they would bring her into the cage, and even so, my coach said, when you win, get her in the cage. So even if they didn't bring her, I was going to ask her.
Is that good when you're like, obviously your main focus is on your opponent, but in the back of your head you're like, oh, after this I gotta face off with this person, like I hope they come in,
Yeah, it excited me. Yeah, it excites me. Yeah, this is kind of stuff I've been that you dream about when you first start. These are the opportunities you want. So when they start coming about, I feel completely ready for it.
to know in concrete, obviously as concrete as the fight game can be, obviously anything can happen. But to know in concrete what your next step is, not having to be like, who am I going to get booked against? Where am I going to fight next? To know this is the date, we've got a date, we've got an opponent, we've got the stakes, and we've got a location. Does that, like, how much is that freeing almost to like immediately finish one fight and know I know exactly what the next time I'm working is?
Yeah, yeah. It's I get ridden with anxiety when I don't know what's next for myself, because I get I don't know, I feel like I'm gonna miss out or something. So yeah, and it's like 13 weeks between each fight. So it's a perfect amount of time. Like you get your few weeks to settle down a bit and chill out for a little bit. Not chill out, it's still training, but you're not in fight camp. Um, and then you can build back into like the last 8 weeks to be in fight camp. So it's perfect.
I was going to ask you about that turnaround time. That's obviously, that turnaround time works for you. You keep the engine warm and then you just go
Mm.
straight back into it.
Yeah, well, I usually take like a more chill couple weeks after the fight. After this fight, we went directly to Sweden. So that was like almost a bit of sensory overload because I just fought, and then we got invited to All Stars to do some training with the girls there. So I went straight from my fight to the next day training in Sweden for like other people's fight camp. So the intensity was through the roof. So that was a bit of like sensory and physical overload, but it was fun. But yeah, now I'm back. I'll slow it down for a couple weeks and then build it back up again.
Talking about that, I saw some photos of you training with Josephine for her fight on Dana White's Contender Series. How was that? What was it like to be able to train like overseas with someone that you fought?
Really cool. We had a great time. The training there is because she's in fire camp obviously, so she's 5 weeks out. So she's kind of in the peak like hard work mode. So I had to match her intensity every day, which was fun. But yeah, it was really cool. It's really cool to actually when you realize like your opponents are just like the same as you. They're just human. They're just trying to um do the best they can. Like there's no before that fight we had some beef back and forth. And then when you catch up in real life, they're such nice people. And they're just exactly like you. They're just trying to make it. So the training was really fun. Yeah, and it was exciting to be a part of her prep because obviously I do wish her the best, and looks better for me if she makes it anyway. So yeah,
Is
very
it
cool.
a is it weird at all to think like, as you said, there was some beef there, and you're like, now I'm on the other side of the planet training with you in your gym. Like, was there a moment of like, this is a little bit strange?
In the beginning, because I knew that they were going to invite me over soon. We'd spoken about it a few months ago about me coming over. And at first, yeah, I was a bit like, oh, I can't believe, you know. Well, I just thought it might be a little bit weird because we were so catty to each other before, but nah, it wasn't weird at all in real life. And then when they flew over to Germany to watch me fight, and then just the next day just brought us back with them. But then yeah, as soon as we met in real life, you laugh, you have your jokes about everything that was said, and you have your jokes about like every time we'd get into a position in training that we were in the fight, we'd both stop and laugh and be like, oh, this is reminiscent. Yeah, it's all a bit of fun. Yeah.
A little bit of deja vu.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Everyone comes across as a big scary bad guy online, and then in person, it's not so much like that at all.
Just in general, not necessarily specifically with like the Josephine example, although if it does apply, please talk about it. When you've obviously come out of a camp, you've come out of a fight, as you said, you can't redline your body forever. You need to tone it down a little bit just so you don't like break. But when you're training with someone else's camp, obviously like the focus is going to be on that fighter, getting them ready. Do you get an opportunity to pick up things while you're like, even though all the focus is directed on another person, when you're helping someone else's camp, do you get a chance to like learn new things and drill things that you don't typically get a chance to?
Yeah, there was also a bunch of different bodies there I hadn't worked with. They've got a lot of high level people there as well. So even just working with the other bodies was something different for me. But I had my coach over there as well, and he was actually running a few of the sessions they'd asked him to come to. So I've heard all the things, like a lot of the things that he teaches, because he teaches me. But sometimes you hear things 5 times, and each time you hear them, you pick up a new detail that you missed before. Um, so I definitely learned from the sessions. Um, a lot of them, because she's quite close to her fight night, are like work sessions. So hard sparring, hard cage work, hard grappling. Um, so a lot of it was just like hard work, which was still fun. But yeah, having my coach there teaching it felt very familiar. So yeah, it was cool.
You got to travel to go to Sweden. To train? Did you get a chance to do any sightseeing around Sweden or Europe while you were over there?
Not really, not really. We were in Stockholm, which is it's not very big, but we were at the gym for 6, 7 hours a day working. So by the time you do your morning session, which is 3 hours, and then you go home, and then we're still jet lagged as well because we've come from Sydney 3 days earlier. So by the time you take your nap and you eat, it's time to go back to the gym. And the purpose of us being there was to help, was to work with Josephine. So we had to make sure we were there for those sessions. So no, we didn't really get to do too much sightseeing. Mostly just the gym and the small suburb we were in. But I mean, it was worth it. The training was a lot of fun. Got a lot from it.
So you're back home. You're back in New South Wales. Uh, what are your as you said, you're in your kind of your chill out period a little bit. You're still going to the gym, but obviously we're out of the fight camp before we go into another fight camp. What do your gym sessions look like now?
Um, a lot of the same stuff. A lot more focus on learning rather than hard work, rather than performing. So today after this, we're gonna go do some wrestling, but we're just gonna work on technique, on chaining different wrestling moves together. We're gonna slow it down and just look at the positions properly. And yeah, just do like different things that I probably wouldn't do in my fight camp because they're not my A game. And just develop new skills that we sort of not ignore, but we put to the side in fight camp, because fight camp is all about implementing what you're going to do on the night and focusing on your strengths. So it's a whole lot more learning. It's a lot less sparring for me and a lot more drills and technical work. But yeah, I enjoy it a lot. I enjoy slowing it down for a little bit, and then yeah, I love learning. So for me, the learning side is always more fun than the actual hard work side. Um, but yeah, yeah.
Jacinta, you fight back in Germany at Oktagon 46 for the vacant strawweight title on September 16th. I think that's 16th over there. So I think that will be like in the morning, 17th over here. As it gets closer, I'm sure there'll be more news about it. The Fight News Australia will do something about it. I thank you so much for your time. It's always a pleasure to speak to you.
Thanks for having me. It's always fun.